Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Switch Statement Podcast. It's a podcast for investigations into miscellaneous tech topics.
This is our 16th episode on Masters of Doom by David Kushner.
Hey, John. How are you doing?
Hey, Matt. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing okay.
Nice.
We're at the end. I mean, the
final chapter.
Technically, the final chapter. There is an epilogue, which I always kind of hate. It's like, don't lie to me. There's still more to this book. Why does it, like, where is the dividing line between, I mean, what's the rule about what goes into an epilogue? Something that has to happen far enough afterwards, I guess?
I love an epilogue. I feel like it's like, especially in a book like this, I'm actually excited to read the epilogue because one of the things I was wondering after this chapter is, what did Romero do after all this? You know, it's like he kind of, in a way, he kind of fell off the face of the earth. So I was very curious to just learn more about that.
I was hoping that they would get the band back together. They kind of teased that was going to happen, but I guess that didn't really wind up coming to pass.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the final chapter, and it starts with a marriage of John Carmack and this woman, Anna Kang, who, there wasn't a ton of information about her, but they did mention that her greatest role model was Ayn Rand.
Oh, gosh. How are you supposed to pronounce that? Because I feel I've heard Ayn I've heard like everything. Ayn, Anne.
Oh, I don't know. I've always said Ayn Rand, but maybe it's something else. So apologies to the Ayn Rand Foundation if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly.
I feel like liking Ayn Rand is one of those things which is kind of an indicator that you're not a good person. Like, that's kind of the cultural idea is like, that's kind of the cultural conception of people who like Ayn Rand.
It's interesting because, Ayn Rand obviously is like a famous conservative myth, the myth of sort of pull yourself up from your bootstraps and be a self-starter, and you can do anything as long as you dedicate yourself and put your mind to it, which are obviously somewhat positive messages. But I feel like when you make fun of Ayn Rand, it makes you sound like a hyper liberal, almost like you're saying, you're just criticizing anything that's conservative or whatever. But my take on it is like, if you make a large part of your identity based on any of these things, like On the Road by Jack Kerouac or something, like if that's a large part of your identity, like it's a bit weird. And I think Ayn Rand is just a strange thing to say, like, she's my greatest role model. I don't know. I just find it weird. I don't want to criticize like her philosophies, which some of them are positive.
Yeah. To be clear, I've actually never read an Ayn Rand book, and I want to because she, more than any other author I think I've ever heard of, is the author that you would define your personality around. It's like no one's going out there being like, I read a lot of Michael Crichton, like, and really make that like something that they tell a lot of people about.
Sphere was so good.
So why? I don't read Jurassic Park. That's my knowledge of. Is it Crichton? Man, we're just butchering.
I think it's Crichton. Let's just mispronounce all names intentionally.
I think what's important is both of us use different pronunciations for all authors from here on out.
Lizzie was telling me about a Michael Crichton book, or Crichton. I think it's Crichton. Anyway, it was a book where there was like a flight disaster, and the whole book is about like an investigation into that flight disaster. And Lizzie was saying it was one of her favorite books. Lizzie is my wife, for the listeners. But anyway, it made me want to read the book.
All right. Well, you'll have to. Maybe that can be the next book. Just take a hard left turn and start doing fiction. Well, so they do. Okay, I was bemoaning the kind of objectification of the only named female character in the book last on the last episode. And then this chapter slightly saves that because they talk about how Anna Kang, she goes to Carmack and was like, I want to make an all-female Quake tournament. And Carmack is pretty dismissive, and he just says, there's probably going to be like 25 people that shows up. Like, do whatever you want to do. And like 1,500 people show up. And then he was like, okay, you know what? And this just adds to the complexity of Carmack as a character, I would say. It's like, he was like, yeah, I was wrong. Like, I kind of cockily assumed that no women would want to attend this. And I was wrong about that. So then he keeps on chatting with her.
I think Carmack loved getting beaten at things.
Yeah.
I think Carmack was so good at everything. Well, everything he did. I'm sure he was terrible at certain things. But when people came along that could actually beat him, he was just like impressed. And he like wanted to be their friend, which I think is cool. I think that's a good quality to have. And it's also a testament to Anna Kang because she was kind of his, they mention in the book, she was kind of his mental equal. She would challenge him.
Yeah.
And they would have these debates about things that were, I don't know, high-minded. I don't know what a challenging debate is like because I'm stupid.
Yeah. How many angels can dance on the head of a pin? That's the best one.
All right. I was going to mention how Carmack totally beat Zuckerberg to the punch because Carmack wanted to build the metaverse in the 90s, which is just like... Well,
at this point, was it in the 90s? I mean, I feel like they talked about Daikatana launching, and wasn't that in 2000?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. It was probably the early 2000s, but I still feel like it, massively predates Zuckerberg.
It did feel like an anachronism when I read Metaverse. It felt like, whoa, were they even talking about Metaverse at that point in time? And I'm not sure if this was Kushner kind of retroactively applying that label.
Well, I think the label came from the who's the guy that wrote Snow Crash,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, Stevenson. Neil Stevenson.
Neil Stevenson,
right? Yeah. Which book did it come from? Was it like Seven Eves or something? Anyway,
I thought it was Snow Crash, but I could be wrong.
Maybe it was Snow Crash. Yeah, I don't remember, but I think the label came from that book, which I guess the question now is like, when did that book come out?
Yeah.
But in any case, it's pretty neat that Carmack sort of immediately realized that this would be like a big thing eventually, and he wanted to start investing in it.
Did he, though? Because it sounds like he just wanted to make another Doom game. It's like, dude, this guy cannot make a different kind of game. It's like, it's funny because on one hand, obviously, John Carmack is one of the most talented developers of all time. But man, this chapter was like, every time, because he went to the people and was like, we want to make this persistent game. And then apparently he changed his mind and then was very quickly like, Trent Reznor wants to make Doom 3's music. So we're going to do that instead. And so, like, anyway, I mean, that doesn't diminish his ability as a programmer. But it's like, take on these challenges. You've wanted to do this persistent world since Quake. Quake was supposed to be a persistent world. And then you just went right back to making a better Doom, basically.
Right. Which, I mean, Doom 3 was pretty cool. It had all the insane lighting effects and stuff. Like, I think for its time, it was pretty technologically advanced. But yeah, still, it would have been, I mean, who knows what reality would be like today if Carmack had gotten really into the metaverse in the early 2000s.
What I realized was, so they talk about EverQuest. You can still play EverQuest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can still play Ultima Online.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's like servers that people run in their garage. It's not like some official thing. But it's still around. It's crazy how these games have such staying power.
Yeah. I just wonder what people are still doing there. Like, I mean, I guess there's always more things to... It's like Animal Crossing. You can always, like, refine... I mean, I guess I'm not sure if there's, like, much of a creative aspect in Ultima, but you can always find something to do, I guess, in these persistent worlds.
Ultima, I mean, when I was in college, Ultima was, like... still very vibrant, and they were like adding new stuff. Like I remember a boss that took like 50 people to kill, so you had to like, you know, hop in. It was kind of like a pre-WoW, you know, type thing where you had to like go on a quote unquote raid. You had to organize a bunch of people together and kill this thing. I also remember a hilarious thing about Ultima Online where there was like a general theme of the game where if something had like an age indicator, it was like more powerful. Like basically you'd kill a skeleton, it was like, you know, strong. But then if it was an elder skeleton, it would be really strong. And if it was like an ancient skeleton, it would be ridiculously powerful. So I remember modders would make these, just come up with these like insane adjectives. Like I remember one that was like old as dirt. So if you'd see like an old as dirt skeleton, it was just like a god and would like really demolish you. But I just remember people playing with that like theme of making things sound older and older. I found it hilarious.
That's funny. So in this chapter, we see the full kind of, I don't know, the dust has settled and Daikatana has officially just fallen off the face of it. Yeah. No, they sold 40,000 copies, apparently a little over 40,000 copies. So it's like not great. But
did poorly. Although Romero still he still feels kind of a I don't know if you could call it a Pyrrhic victory, because I don't really know what that means, but basically he had started Ion Storm on this principle of like, we're going to work on multiple games and we're going to like be designed first and it's going to be fun. And that concept still sort of worked because they had Deus Ex, and Deus Ex was a tremendous raging success. In fact, one of my favorite games, you know, probably in my top 10. So I feel like for Romero, that was still kind of a little mini victory within the sadness of Daikatana.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the idea was certainly vindicated, but his, like the idea of it is some of these will fail, and his was this fantastic failure. So and then he kind of got cut out of Ion Storm. So basically they just, I guess Eidos bought out a controlling stake in Ion Storm, and then they were like, all right, everybody in Dallas, including Romero, you're out of here. And then yeah.
And that was a weird part of the book because it just sounded like Romero was able to like look at some list and he could see that his name was not on it. So he just knew that he was going to get laid off, basically.
Bad tech ops.
Yeah, it sounded like he was, you know, at the time that he saw this list, he was like still employed. So I guess he had to just sort of like hang out until, you know, he actually got fired.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that would be kind of nice, actually. Like, you know, far in advance that you're going to be like, oh, you just sit and collect your paycheck. I mean, this was the same company where there was just a publicly available tranche of all of their private emails. Just anyone could download. Like, there's a part in the chapter where the media is like sharing all of these incredibly personal details, these private emails of the company, and just like showing the just disarray that was going on inside. So so it's not super surprising that there was also this incredibly private list that Romero was able to find.
Yeah, totally. They mention a little mini this part I found hilarious. There was like a mini Carmack Romero reunion. Like the author said something along the lines of like over a couple year period they had kind of seen each other around town, you know, so they remained cordial even though they had this kind of feud. But then there was a point where like Romero met up with Carmack and he wanted to ask him for a favor. I think it was like licensing some intellectual property or something, and their reunion was just them going hey, and then the other one going hey. And that was it.
I don't know why I think maybe I was hoping for the romantic ending where, you know, in the kind of larger sense of the word, where they were like, they hug or something.
Yeah, I was hoping for that too.
I mean, Carmack just went 100% Carmack on him, and was like, Romero's like, can I do X, Y, and Z? And he says, sure, why not? Just completely like
Yep.
passive and being like just neutral. Like he wasn't upset, but he also like,
It's almost worse.
yeah,
It's like he's just an automaton. I really wanted that kind of Jerry Maguire hug.
yeah.
But sad. Oh well. Carmack had other interests. He was getting into rockets.
Yeah, so Doom 3 was going to be Carmack's last game because he had to get to space.
Yeah, he had to work on rockets. So it's interesting because this is, the final chapter of the book, but a significant portion of this chapter just describes Carmack's new hobby. He was getting into rockets, so he's trying to acquire these dangerous substances that are used for, rocket fuel. They talk about how it wasn't hydrogen peroxide, right? Or
Yeah,
was it?
it was. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
He needed to make extremely pure hydrogen peroxide.
It just sounds weird because isn't hydrogen peroxide like a totally normal like kitchen thing?
It is, but I think it's like, well, I mean, uranium is a bad example, but it's like uranium where the concentrate or the purity matters. So it's
Yeah.
like you can run a nuclear fission reactor at a certain level, but you can't make a bomb until the next level. It's like you
Right.
can, I don't know, clean a wound. What do you do with hydrogen peroxide?
Yeah, I think it's like a wound cleaning thing. So you can
At
clean
a
a
certain
wound.
level, but you can't make a rocket.
Yeah, so anyway, there was a section where they describe him and his friends sort of getting this impure hydrogen peroxide and then trying to distill it down into its pure form, which is like an
They
incredibly...
called it moonshine hydrogen peroxide.
I
Which-
legitimately thought this chapter was going to end with Carmack blowing himself up or like blowing his leg off or something.
It sounded like that there was a very real risk. Like some of these onomatopoeia that they're throwing in here, it sounded like he's about to destroy himself.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of what Carmack did after, Doom 3. Romero, on the other hand, it's kind of sad because Daikatana came out with this whimper, and I feel like Romero himself he just didn't do that much in the industry after this. And, I'm not going to hold it against the guy because he obviously did these amazing, amazing things. But I feel like a lot of his projects after this time period were, just not very interesting. And
Yeah, I mean, he talks about this and he says, well, I now have a general purpose 3D engine. So there's not these new problems, like major problems to solve. It's these optimizations, basically. But you can kind of do anything at that point. And I think that's the point at which he's like, I don't know, there's other problems for me to cut my teeth on, like rocketry. But there is this quote at the very end, and it actually shares a lot of DNA with the whole point about Ayn Rand, which he says, like, in the information age, the only barriers are self-imposed, basically. It's like you can do anything you want. You don't need like millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really inspiring and kind of uncharacteristic quote from John Carmack. But I mean, I guess it's not surprising that the thing that he feels most enthusiastically about is like the pursuit of knowledge or expertise.
Yeah. No, I thought that was a very good sentiment to end the book on. And I feel like it just gets more and more true. Like we've discussed this many times on the podcast, but with large language models, I feel like that whole concept of like your boundaries being self-imposed could not be more true. Because you can solve problems that are way outside of your domain of expertise now by just having a model help you. Carmack stood for that acquisition of knowledge, and I think that's a super noble pursuit. And I remember as a kid sort of revering him for that, and I still feel like that's one of the most noble things you can aspire to in life, is just acquiring knowledge and hopefully spreading it around as well.
Yeah, sharing knowledge and then hopefully doing cool things with it. I mean, Carmack is a really good example of someone who was able to marry those two things of acquiring knowledge, but then also like making a product. Exactly. I mean, I don't want this to sound like I'm disparaging like Richard Feynman, but like, you know, he advanced physics, but he, as far as I know, never made like there wasn't like a actual manifestation of the stuff that he worked on.
I mean, he helped with the atom bomb.
Did Feynman work on the atom bomb?
I think so. Yeah, I think he was there. You know, he's just one of the flies on the wall.
Okay. Well, so maybe I was wrong about that, and maybe now I should think less of him.
No, but I think your point is very true. Where it's like Carmack was a practitioner first and foremost.
Yeah.
His pursuit of knowledge acquisition had a end goal to it, which I think it is an important way of looking at it. You know, because you can really get way too high in an ivory tower and not sort of express yourself in a way that resonates with people. And I think it's important to have that skill as well.
Well, that is all I had. But man, this book, I don't know. It kind of, I don't want to say it's unceremonious, but it's like it felt like it ended very quickly. Like there wasn't some like quick or like ease off.
Yeah, agree. It had kind of an abrupt ending and kind of a sad ending. Like I wish they had ended on some sort of, you know, high note for both Romero and Carmack. It was sort of a low note for Romero and sort of a weird note for Carmack. I don't even know what to call it. But you know, there's like Doom just had its 30-year anniversary very recently, and Romero made like a few levels for the 30-year anniversary, and people said they were awesome levels. I haven't played them yet, but you know, so they're still kind of alive and kicking. Carmack did a bunch of VR stuff at Facebook, and I'm not sure what he's doing now, but
he's working on AI. Actually, he wants to. He was like, AI is the kind of thing that a single person can, you know, especially like you're saying now with these days, now that compute is like just commoditized, a single person can just like train an amazing model. So,
ooh, nice. Okay, well,
he wants to make it AGI.
Yeah, hopefully he figures out AGI so I can retire.
I mean, if you told me John Carmack made an AGI in a month, I wouldn't be surprised.
No, yeah, not at all. If he can figure out networking networking multiplayer for Doom, then
in a week, yeah.
All
right, well, we just have the epilogue left, so I will see you next time for that.
See you next time, Matt.